back with magical people and my very special guest, Chris McAuley. How are you this day, Chris?
I'm doing well, Dr. Mike. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank you infinite amounts of times because, as I've mentioned to you, a lot of people may not know this, but I'm a huge fan of Dracula. I'm a huge fan of that whole Gothic thing. I believe I was six or younger when I was introduced to Famous Monsters of Filmland, the Universal Monster series, and Dracula in particular, and something just resonated for me. I maybe it's a past life. I don't know what the heck it is. And bats fascinated me. I have still this innate love of bats, which is really a lot of viewers may not know. It's not a major part of the whole Dracula thing because there's rats and there's moon dust. He travels on as moon dust along a moonbeam or something. There's smoke. There's wolves. Bats are not the only creature, but he's most associated with that because of popular media and of the day. Most people know the Bela Lugosi incarnation of Dracula. And although the accent is actually, in a way, it's pretty accurate to what we're talking about, because Transylvania is, first of all, is not a town, it's a region. A lot of lay people may not know that, but he was born, I believe, near there, Bela Lugosi, and so his accent is probably the only accurate thing in that whole production. And when I looked at, after I knew a lot of details about the whole Dracula realm, I looked at the Dracula film. I believe it was 1931, and the stage production. I believe it was in New York. I could be wrong. And they switched things around, and it still to this day annoys me to no end. The Renfield character, rather than being this mad character that eats flies, etc., turns out to be the guy at the beginning that comes to the castle in the Bela version to sign that Carfax Abbey agreement. And it's like, wait a second, that might explain later why he's gone mad, but that's not who it was. It was Jonathan Harker. And they've also switched around Mina and Lucy in that film as well. And I thought, wait, isn't Lucy supposed to be blonde and Mina supposed to be dark haired? Anyway, it's still, for lay people, it's a success. It'll always be a success. Bela will always be kind of the Dracula, but not in my book. In my, so to speak, in my book, it's well, for visuals, it's Christopher Lee of the Hammer films with his mustache, and John Carradine, David Carradine's dad, also with his mustache, very lean, with that intense energy. Let's start off by talking about this because of any, besides, I know you call him Dacre Stoker. I call him Dacre Stoker, probably not
After the
right.
drink, after the drink.
Yes, exactly. And aside from him, he is the great grandnephew of Bram Stoker, the original novelist. You're probably one of the few people that physically walk this earth that know Dracula inside out. So let's throw around some stuff. Let's throw around some theories. You even said to me, you suspect that the real Dracula, contrary to popular belief, may not be Vlad the Impaler, but maybe someone from the Lyceum Theater. So
Yes.
let's just get into that and chat.
Okay, so Bram Stoker did not originally title the novel Dracula.
Okay.
Uh, the original character of Dracula was known as Count de Vil. Now, the reason for that is that Bram intended that Dracula be the devil on earth. So Count de Vil, Count Devil.
Very good.
The publisher, Archibald the Constable in England, just said to him, right, we need to catch a title. We need one word. Go and find that one word. And he goes into the London Library and he starts to research. So he looks at books written by Emily Gerard about Transylvanian superstitions, picks up a book on Transylvanian history, bang, sees Dracula and said, that'll be a perfect name for the character. Now, this explains why whenever Jonathan Harker meets Dracula, Dracula has a very belabored backstory about how he's linked to gypsies and all sorts of characters, because there was no clearly defined historical figure that was being used. So a lot of Dracula scholars are like, oh, okay, so where's this all come from? Well, this is where it comes from, folks. It wasn't originally Vlad III. That was popularized by Ford Coppola's film. And he added an awful lot on. When it says Bram Stoker's Dracula, I have a massive problem with that. Decker and I hate that term. We call it Coppola's Dracula. The Bram Stoker film in the 90s has got very little to do with the book, but the visuals are gorgeous. And, you know, Dracula has manifested in various forms throughout the 125 years of his existence, and many different interpretations. I like the film, but it's not Bram Stoker's original vision.
Yes, yes. And there were a number of other things as well. I know this was done, and it's not kosher. I can say that I'm Jewish. It's not kosher what the 1922 F.W. Murnau version of, they basically plagiarized their interpretation of the Dracula legend. And there was also a redone version in the 1970s as well. And it portrayed this bald-headed, long-nailed, long-fingered kind of character, but they never, because of copyright reasons, never used the name Dracula, never used the names of any of the characters or probably locations. And the symbolism, though, and the photography, oh my goodness, that struck me when I was a little bit older. I looked at it, and I've got a few captures as well that may or may not come up. There's a shadow of his hand and the sleeping Lucy or Mina, I don't know which one, they refer to her as a different character anyway in that film, and the shadow of the hand over her heart kind of clenching it. And there's another visual as well, of the rats, almost suggesting that he's a plague. The plague has come over from wherever now to England, or again, they've changed it in that particular film. So they're kind of portraying him or his like as a plague. And I thought that was effectively done with those rats.
Yeah.
And a further visual which grabbed me as well. Not the one where he sits up erect as if he probably was tied to a board. Not that, but the sunlight one, where he opens up the sunlight, and that probably for the day or the belief system represented God, quote unquote, conquering evil, or light conquering shadow and darkness. And I thought those metaphors and that symbology was really, really cool. But I'm not so sure that's what the original novel at the core was about. How do you feel about all that? I've just spewed
Yeah,
out.
I'll just know you're fine. I can tell the enthusiasm and it's welcome. I'll go back to who the character of Dracula might have been historically. So Bram Stoker was the manager of the Lyceum Theatre in London, very prestigious theatre. He was also the manager of Sir Henry Irving, who was the first knighted actor. Henry Irving may have been the template for Dracula in real life. He liked to play narcissistic characters. He was instrumental in the creation of Dracula when he played Mephistopheles in Faust. Bram was very influenced by that. Also, the fact that he was when they were doing the stage rehearsal of Dracula, stage reading, and this is for copyright reasons, he was Dracula. Bram gave him the script and said, "You read Dracula." And so he read Dracula, and he was very much a method actor as well. One of the things that might interest your listeners is that Bram stated until his dying day that Dracula was a true story.
Yes. Yes.
So that always fascinated me when I saw that, with the notes and the letters. I was like, okay, this is absolutely fascinating. And he passed that over to the publisher, Archibald and Constable, and they basically said, no, we can't have this. Now, the book that you hold in your hand, you know, as Dracula, is not the full version, and we'll get into that later. It was redacted by the editors. But Bram stated that every single character, their names were changed, but they were real people.
Yes.
Postulation.
Now, I just want to emphasize to folks out there, you're not necessarily suggesting that Henry Irving was a vampire, but perhaps the character, the literary character of Dracula was
based around. For the record, I don't believe in vampires. I just get that out there because some people ask me that, and it's like, no, I don't. Sorry, but there are different types of psychological vampires.
Yes,
and he may have had some of those traits. Bram's relationship with Irving became very strained later in their life. So that's where the historical Dracula may have actually come from the theaters. When it comes to Count Orlok and Nosferatu, the word Nosferatu was created by Emily Gerard, and it was kind of a made-up name, to be honest. It has no real meaning. She made it up in her book Land Beyond the Forest, which is the Latin name for Transylvania, and that was kind of lifted by Bram and used and now popularized. I love Nosferatu. I think it's extremely close to the Gothic vision of Dracula. Vampires are always popular during plagues. Two types of monsters are always popular: zombies and vampires during plagues. And the last great vampire scare was in Europe in the 70s, and it was straight after a plague. In fact, it was in a town in Romania, and the body of an old man was exhumed, burnt, and every person in the village had to drink part of his ash with water. It's as recent as that, vampire scares. We also have the Highgate vampire scare in London, which is quite well known. But that's, every time there's a plague, there's always some sort of popularist sort of vampire thing that comes out.
So what is it? What is it about the vampire thing? Because honestly, I can't stand zombies. I've researched down to their origins and that sort of thing, and how they were portrayed a certain way in movies in the 30s, perhaps, and to what they've become nowadays. Werewolves, I can take them or leave them. That sounds really weird, but it's true. And the whole lycanthropy thing. I suspect, and I'd love your feedback, that maybe the whole fascination with vampires is the mystical, the sexual, the romantic, the darkness, the magic that is associated with the vampire, even though, strictly speaking, they're animals, they're predators. They're there solely to gratify themselves. And I'm not saying this literally. I'm not saying that vampires actually exist, except for perhaps energetic vampires and all that sort of thing, as you alluded to earlier. But strictly speaking, they are monsters. But somehow there's this association, maybe because of popular media, don't know, with magic. There's Lugosi's hand, and with mesmerism and mysticism and all that sort of thing. So for me, there's a depth to vampires and that whole thing. Werewolves, not so much, although I'm a fan of Lon Chaney. I realize there's been many other portrayals of werewolves other than him, Lon Chaney Jr. But what is it then? What is it where everything has veered off so much from, I think it's 1500s book. Was it Varney the Vampire? Spelled my favorite way. To modern day stuff. By modern day, I'm remembering the 70s movie with Sutherland and these kind of punkish kind of boys walking around broad daylight in pretty neat garb, modern garb, and I love the sunglasses. But look how much a broad range of deviation has occurred. What is it? What is the, if you'll pardon the pun, the enduring, long-lasting qualities of the vampire and Dracula in particular?
It's a popular conception of ancient religion. So we always have the concepts of blood sacrifice. They've been with us since the dawn of time. Even in Judeo-Christian religion. It's there. No matter how many times we try and deny it, it's all there. And that's part of it. I mean, Leviticus talks about why you should never consume blood. So the concept of blood sacrifice is there. It's an ancient part of religion. I think vampirism is directly linked to part of our DNA, if you want to call it, that remembers a lot of our ritualistic behavior that's got passed down, possibly genetically. And that's why religion endures. Now, when you talk about the sun, for example, the sun was always an important part of human religion. In Neolithic man, bodies were turned to the east and painted red before they're buried. If you go to a Christian church, you'll see the altar is always in the east. Graveyards are generally facing the east. And there's a reason for that. It's to do with the sun. The cross is a symbol of the equinox of the sun. When Christ dies, and I don't want to be too controversial, but remember, a spear goes through his heart, pierces his heart to kill him, and then blood flows, and then the sun disappears. There's a lot of that symbolism and those religious connotations that have been put into vampirism, and it's part of a story that isn't allowed to die for whatever reason. I point to Superman in this as well. That Superman is the sun god. Superman is powered by the sun. He's born of it's almost like a virgin birth whenever he appears, and parents adopt him. They're not his true parents. His true parents are out there somewhere.
Yes.
And he's got all these powers, and you see it in Superman Returns film, where Lex Luthor pierces him through the side with a kryptonite spear, and he falls down in a cruciform. It's that Christic solar deity. Vampires are the absolute opposite of that solar deity. They embody darkness and quite a soulless nature. And I think, going in psychologically to it, I think that's the shadow self. I think that's why vampires are attractive as well, because they're part of the shadow self. So yeah, there's what I think about it.
Very good. So enduring, the whole, what I'll say, the whole Dracula thing, and the mysticism and the glamour and all of that versus the origins of the legend, of the superstition, of the whatever. What's exciting, what excited me was a few years ago, I can't remember if it seems like 5 years ago, more or less, yet another republishing of Bram Stoker's original novel Dracula came out with a beautiful yellow cover and I believe red type, and all this. It was very simple. It probably was a reproduction of one of the original. You'll know this and you'll share this with us all in a few minutes. Probably was the a copy or reproduction of the original cover. And then what excited me, almost parallel to this, was the release of one or two other books. And one suggesting that it was the sequel to Dracula. And I thought, whoa, this is going to have to be really, really good to be a sequel. And oh my goodness, it was really, really good. It wasn't, how do I put this? It wasn't subtle like Bram Stoker's version. It was very specific, and a lot of the scenes were very explicit and specific and whatnot. But I'm not going to give anything away because people have to read this book. I believe it's called The Undead, Dracula the Undead. Perhaps you'll correct me or not in a few minutes. And for me, without giving too much away, I'm glad how the Dracula character turned out at the end. We'll just kind of put it that way. And for me, it was worth the journey of reading, such a long novel. I tend to read very quickly and write very quickly as well. So it didn't take me that long, perhaps just a few days. And then another book, I believe it's called Dracul. That's how I would say it as a Montrealer. Perhaps a Canadian would say, or an American might pronounce it differently. But I would say Dracul, DRA, without Dracula, without the A at the end, portends to be not the sequel, the pre-Dracula, the prequel, not the sequel, if you will. And for me, it chillingly resonated a truth. To me, that's one of the few horror novels that felt like, you know what? You never know. You never know. And so would you care to share a little bit of feedback with those books? And
Sure.
I'm aware of Dracula's Guest, which perhaps we should bring up as well in all of this, but just blab away and share because I'm excited about all of these.
Yeah, I didn't write those books. That was Decker that wrote those books, but we have talked about them at length. Dracula the Undead, I read personally. There was a little bit of a disconnect I found between the original and that book, but it is a good read. It is very explicit, so if you're easily offended, don't read it. The prequel, Dracul, was very well received. I enjoyed it. It does bring up sort of a mystery about Bram Stoker. Yes, he was extremely ill as a child, and there was a mysterious nanny called Nanny Crone. And we do believe that Nanny Crone maybe started to share some Celtic folklore because the Dracula vampire has more in common with Celtic folklore than it does with Eastern European superstition.
Yes.
You know, even the word Dracula in Irish means bad blood. You know, it might be a coincidence, who knows? But there are older forms of vampirism within Ireland, such as the vampires that come out of the bog, and you see that displayed in the book. There was a vampire called Abertach, and he was a diminutive magician who terrorized an Irish village, and the tribe killed him, and he came back from the dead and then demanded blood as a tribute. This went on for amount of time until the chieftain and several warriors killed him, and then they buried him upside down in an ash tree. That tree's there today. The farmer has kept that tree in the field. Successive farmers for the last millennia cannot get rid of that tree. They have tried everything. There's so many stories where, you know, recently even the farmer has come with a tractor and put a rope around the tree and tried to pull it. And before he could get the rope on the tractor drives off mysteriously on its own. They've tried to cut the tree down with a chainsaw stops working as soon as it touches the tree. All sorts of stories like this, because the legend is if you dig up the tree, the vampire will return. I've never been to the field, but I intend to go there whenever I return back home just to see. But I won't be attempting to dig the tree up. So the other aspect of vampirism, which is linked to Irish Celtic mythology, is that of the Fae folk, the fairies. And there was a battle between a race called the Fomorians and the Fae folk. And the Fomorians came from the sea and couldn't be killed. They had to have their heads cut off and a stake driven through their heart before they were killed. So you can start to see where Bram Stoker's taking a lot of his mythology from.
Absolutely. Well, he himself, I don't know if people out there know, Bram Stoker was Irish.
Yeah, proud Irishman like me. So yeah, there's a lot of correlation between Bram's work as well. You know, not just Dracula. I'm a professor at the University of Alberta, and I've got a tenure of a year to talk about Bram Stoker. I talk about the wide range of Bram's works, which we'll maybe get into later. And you know, he didn't just do Dracula. And I always say to my students, just because Dracula is the most well-known book doesn't mean it's his best book. That's quite controversial, but he was a poet. He was a painter. He's actually created the Dublin Illustrator and Painter Society. He wrote fantasy stories. He wrote dramas. Yes, he wrote gothic horror and he wrote cosmic horror, but he had a tremendous range. He was the Neil Gaiman of the day. That's how I always typify him. And he was able to take all of the stories that I believe he was told from childhood and meld that into some very compelling narratives.
Yes, yes. I want to kind of go to a prequel, an actual prequel, if you will, because we are speaking of multiple works of his, and a very little known work of his is called Dracula's Guest, which I seem to remember, and you and I discussed this at another time. I believe was taken out of the original novel. Am I correct?
Yeah, it was taken out of the original novel. It was originally in there as a form of prequel. And it's a great book. If you go to YouTube and you look up Stoker McAuley Productions, Declan and I do a reading of Dracula's Guest together. We did it for last year's World Dracula Day, and we see Jonathan Harker going to the castle. It's an aspect of Jonathan Harker going to the castle, and he encounters a grave, which is his first encounter with a vampire, a female vampire. And then Dracula appears in wolf form and protects him. And yeah, it was released after Bram's death by Florence, his widow. And yeah, it's not very well known, which is unfortunate, but it's part of the Dracula puzzle.
Yes, yes. I was fortunate enough to read it when I was very young. I must have been 10 or 11. I got a hold of a paperback version. It was a very well illustrated comic book version of the original Dracula, but also Dracula's Guest as part of other short stories, if you will. And that really grabbed me because there was an ominous energy, an ominous vibe present, if you will, pretty much present during that whole story. And I never forgot it. And then I think years later, maybe just a few years ago, I decided to read the Amazon version. I think it was a Kindle version. And it moved me in other ways. That's all I can say. I'm a cat person. I don't know if we can give away parts of the book and explain what goes on, but I felt really sad. But I realized too there was metaphors involving a mama cat and a baby cat. Did you want to go?
Oh yes, you're talking about Squall now. So you're talking about the yeah, we can maybe go there. I've got a little slideshow if we want to do that first.
Sure, that would be awesome. Yeah,
might start to. So forgive me, viewers, if this takes me a little while to get set up. Usually my wife's here to help me, but I will. You can let me know.
Okay, I might blab along until we're ready, and then you could just tell me when we're ready. So the whole Dracula thing. Oh my goodness. I was so excited to meet Chris. Our connection was magic, and probably the next show, because believe it or not, viewers and listeners out there, there's going to be a two-parter. Check this out.
So hopefully everybody can see this the little title screen. Can you see it okay? Michael, yeah. So yeah, this is a Stoker first. So this is something that Decker and I have created. This is a universe which is based on Bram's work. And we've got the famous quote here, enter freely, go safely, and leave something of the happiness you bring. Bram Stoker was a Freemason. This is very similar to the Masonic phrase. Bram Stoker was actually intrinsically involved in magic as well, as we'll talk about later. So, let's see. So what is the Stokerverse? So basically we call it transmedia products. We've got comic books, we've got audios, we've got novels, we've got games that are all coming out this year. And there's a central focus on the story of Dracula. And we've got different genres as well. Much like Bram worked in fantasy and drama and all sorts of genres, we branched out into that as well. So, we've got very detailed characters and interpersonal narratives. And, we believe that for fans of horror, vampire, popular entertainment, they've been looking for something like this for decades. So hopefully now the hunger can be satisfied. I never like talking about myself, but I'm always required to. So this is a little bit about me. Yeah, I mean, I've worked on the Terminator games, Judge Dredd. Um, I've written audios, all sorts of things. So, but that's me. And here's the man himself. So Degger's the co-creator of the Stokerverse. He's the great grandnephew of Bram Stoker. As we talked about, he's the international best-selling co-author of Dracula Undead and of Dracul. He's a lecturer on Bram Stoker, presents documentaries on Dracula, and leads tours to Ireland, UK, and Romania. And we have our friend Andrew Brown, who's the games manager. So we've got a few games coming out this year in the Stokerverse. So Bram Stoker, writer, Freemason, occultist, and theatre manager. I actually I love that image. Now we've got the Christopher Lee image there. But I always think that Bram Stoker was a romantic at heart, and hence that quotation about no one but a woman can help a man when he is in trouble with the heart. I think that gets really to the essence of Bram's writing. Very interesting history. He was born in Clontarf in Dublin in 1847. He was very ill during childhood. He couldn't stand or walk until he was 7. And he made this miraculous recovery. He became an athlete and a rugby player and a football player. I think people thought he was going to die at one stage when he was younger. But yeah, made a full recovery. He worked in the civil service, always wanted to be a writer. And he started his career in theatre with the Dublin Evening Mail by being a drama critic. As we mentioned before, he became a friend, manager, and mentor to Sir Henry Irving. And the one important things for me to note is that he wrote late in life. So if you're watching this and you've always wanted to be a writer, do it. Doesn't matter what age you are. If you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or even your hundreds, become a writer. We've got Bram here, who's been writing, who wrote late in life and really made his mark in literary history. Again, didn't just write horror, but also wrote drama and fantasy. And one of the most interesting curios is that he helped Buffalo Bill with his Wild West show in America. Which not a lot of people know. So as mentioned before, Bram doesn't just do Dracula. We've got a whole lot of works here that people may or may not be familiar with. So we've got Snake's Pass, we've got Jewel of 7 Stars. I love that cover for Jewel of 7 Stars. Lair of White Worm, and then Bram Stoker's Famous Impostors. So it's just a few selections of my favourites. So Snake's Pass is actually a romance novel. But an Englishman that goes to the west of Ireland. He falls in love with a woman. Father is in debt to a moneylender. Terrible thing to be. And they go and find a mysterious treasure in a bog. So you can see this whole thing about a bog and vampires and all of this sort of stuff resonating again. And it was his first breakout piece of fiction. Jewel of 7 Stars is an Egyptian horror story. And it's one of the first stories that's been written about resurrecting mummies. So we have this really now famous trope that's been used in Hollywood that Bram started, much like Dracula. And like Dracula, it uses instances of modern day science. So that's a common theme in Stoker's work. So they talk about radium for energy in it. Dracula, you have a phonograph where Seward is recording things. You also have electric lighting in Dracula as well. Jewel of 7 Stars was influential in cinema. So we've got the Mummy series, for example. And something very prevalent in Bram's works, strong female characterization, which is very important. Lair of White Worm, we've got ancient cosmic horror in a similar vein to Lovecraft. And it's based on folklore surrounding the Lambton worm. Probably should be spelled W-Y-R-M. But it's a long snake-like dragon. And it was published when Bram was in his deathbed, pretty much in 1911. The artwork was by Pamela Coleman Smith. And take note of that name. Pamela Coleman Smith was one of the artists in A. Waite's tarot cards. She was also a designer for the Lyceum Theatre. And the story infers that the giant white worm can transform into a very beautiful, sexy woman. Ken Russell did a film in the 80s called Lair of White Worm. It's okay. It's not the book, but it's okay. And, it's worth a watch, but it does contain some of the elements of the book. And it was his early aspirations into the field of cosmic horror, which unfortunately were never fully realized. This may interest you, Michael. Famous Imposters has a whole lot of occult interest in there. So it's a non-fiction book which focuses on pretenders. And we've got chapters on practitioners of magic. So Paracelsus, Cagliostro, Mesmer. We've also got chapters on witches, John Dee and Ed McAuley. Worth checking out for anybody who's interested in magic. And of course we have Dracula. Now, I started delving into how Dracula may have been created by Bram Stoker. And I created an audio drama. Would you like to hear that audio drama?
Absolutely.
It's 5 minutes, and it is voiced by Kirsten Holland, who's an award-winning vocalist. So I think this is the first time it's ever been aired. So wow. You're getting a bit of an exclusive. So hopefully this works.
Awesome. Thank you.
A Whisper in the Darkness by Chris McAuley and Dacra Stoker. Performed by Kristen Holland. The leather armchair was comfortable. It seemed well suited to embrace his frame, the rich burgundy contrasting with his conventional dark blue suit. The light of the fire played across his handsome features, warm hues reaching up to caress his face for brief moments of time. His fingers were curved around the glass of brandy, which also helped to keep the damp cold of the Irish winter from his bones. This time of Samhain he held in special regard, a time where the twilight of the world began to recede into a slow, gentle embrace of darkness. A time where spirits of the dead flitted back to life, some pausing to remake their acquaintance. Old school friends lost to tragedy, family members whose faces were summoned to brief remembrance in his mind. A spark flew out of the open fireplace. He shifted out of the chair quickly. Florence would be angry if anything stained her beloved rug. It had been gifted to her by a close cousin just before she fell pregnant. As he bent down to ensure that the spark would not ignite the sheepskin, he heard another voice. The intonation was slightly accented, and its strength undeniable. It was the whisper in the darkness that he had been hoping to hear. Bram, it will soon be time to breathe me into existence. Even with his proximity to the flickering flames, a familiar chill seemed to surround him. The accent brought with it a sense of unhappy days from his childhood past. As he stood, steadying himself with the heavy mantle of the fireplace, the months of sickness which plagued him were brought to mind. Weak and unable to join the outside world, it had marked him, separated him from possible friendships, from play and from laughter. As isolating as his childhood had been, it had also gifted him with an inquiring mind and an imagination that very few could equal. The voice reminded him of Ellen Crone, the mysterious lady with the ever-changing aspect, a face which flitted between the young and the old, a source of wisdom and then even a source of comfort. In moments where his whole body seemed to rebel against the notion of taking one more breath, she had been there. She had ensured his survival. Hazy memories of rich red lips and impossibly sharp teeth shining in the darkness began to assert themselves. Again, the voice spoke. My story will redefine the meaning of terror. Through your words, I will travel across the east of Europe to England. And my name will also be known in the new world of America. Bram settled back into his armchair, his mind full of visions of an imposing castle, wolves baying at a full-crested moon, and a young man imprisoned, his soul in danger of damnation. This was the beginnings of the story which the voice had always promised him. Since the days confined to his bed, afraid to go outside, this voice and the promise of a great story that was to be told through him had always skirted the edge of his consciousness. Lately, however, the voice had become manifest. These rich, cultured and accented tones were the reason that he stayed up late at night, the paper-thin wall between the living and the dead being torn asunder seemed to inspire and fire his imagination. He was seeking a crowning glory, a Gothic novel to rival that of Poe and of dear Oscar. Unseen by Bram from the darkness behind his armchair, a deep darkness where the crackling fire could not illuminate, slender, powerful hands, wraith-like in their appearance, began to settle on his shoulders. The fingernails protruded in a fashion which gave them the appearance of claws. Some dirt was present under them, as if the owner had recently dug their way from the ground. As the ghostly fingertips pressed against Bram's shoulders, he felt a chill like no other enter his body. From his head, travelling down through his spine, a gnawing cold which could never be sought to be warmed invaded him. Once again, a swathe of images danced in front of his eyes. Women and men joined in a desperate fight against evil. A count from remote Eastern Europe, stretching his hands through the forces of history to reach England. Dead bodies animating and being brought to life. Madmen issuing words like prophets as they consumed insects. A lean face smiling in a rictus-like death grin, his mouth and face covered in blood. The yellow eyes gleaming evilly. All through these hellish visions, Bram felt as though someone was leaning over his shoulder. He could swear that he even heard the armchair creak a little. As the voice spoke for the final time that night, he felt a breath against his cheek. It brought with it an unwelcome intimacy, for he could also detect the sweet smell associated with the recently deceased. For those awful moments, he found that he could not move. Then you tell them of me. It will cause men and women to check their doors and windows at night. Children will scream as they look out their windows and believe to see my face, smiling at them in the moonlight. My name will give to you immortality, and the legacy as no one else on earth can share. Through your words, nations will once again tremble at the name of Dracula. The hands and the voice left him. Bram once again found movement in his limbs. As he looked for reassurance in the bright light and heat of the fire, he reached for his notebook, resting on the table in front of him. He began to write.
So hopefully that came across quite well. That is a little bit of an explicit for you.
Awesome.
No
So appreciated, Chris.
Ray's heard that one before.
Yeah, we're going to have to wrap up, and surprise, surprise, we're going to go into part 2. So our viewers will have a lot more information to look at, and a lot more exciting things I also want to touch on in part 2, the 175th anniversary of the release of the novel by Bram Stoker, Dracula. So thank you once again, Chris, for joining me this day.
No problems. Enjoyed it.
And I want to thank all of you out there for joining us. Welcome everybody to Magical People. We have a very, very special guest with us this day, and it's a personal friend of mine. It's someone very, very special. This will become apparent to all of you out there who are watching, and it's the great, I know she wouldn't like to be called great, Cindy Paulos. How are you this day, Cindy?
I'm magical. I love that word magic, and I'm so glad you embrace the magic in life, because the magic in life is the bridge to spirit, right?
Absolutely. It is. And it's the wonder, you know, one of, I believe our goals is to see through the eyes of a child, and to daily, every moment, hopefully, see that wonder that life is. And really, and I'm going to use terms that people may not like. You and I get it. And I know a lot of people get it as well. I'm going to use the term God. I'm not shy. God is God. God is the infinite with a capital I. Now I'm getting started again. I'm not going to do that. But to me, if one can strive as an adult to see through the eyes of a child, you are seeing through God's eyes.
Absolutely.
You know,
that's what Christ said. But Christ always said that, you know, I mean, and it is that wonder. And I think in this book that you help, with your help, you made this possible. I could not have done this book without you. And I have a poem in here about such a wonder that life brings. You helped me put this book together. I had the dream of doing it because I had a magical visitation from Mary. Yeah. And I always thank you for the work you did on this book. And in that book, I have I couldn't have done it because I'm not good at formatting or editing, and you made it possible. And I do have a poem about such a wonder this life brings.
Oh, I'd love to have you share that with everybody. I had this vision the other day. Again, some people in our audience will go, vision, they'll roll their eyes. Others will go, you know, they're sitting at the edge of their seats, as we are. So I had this vision the other day of you reading some poems, some, I call them sacred words, because they are.
And messages, you know,
yes.
You know, and I don't know how much you talk on your shows about meditation, but I know you have a deep background in that.
Yes.
And I've been meditating every day of my life since I've been 13. Thank you to Dr. Masters teaching me to meditate when I was 13.
Yes.
And every day of my life.
It's everything. Meditation is everything. I can't imagine getting through this life, this physical illusionary life, if you will, without being one with who we truly are. And so for me, I was 18 when I started. I didn't start as early as you. And when I did meet, quote unquote, Dr. Masters through the University of Metaphysics, University of Sedona, his words assured me I was on the correct path, and still really reassures me. I don't want to take away from you. You have so much.
No, but I do have to say, I don't know how many people realize how many inspirational books you have written. When I was meeting you through the University of Metaphysics, I mean, you had more books out than I could ever I was like, wow, look at what this man is doing. And then I was connecting with you during the writing of this book, and you told me how many books you were doing. I mean, it was about one a year, wasn't it? About one a year?
Sometimes more. Once I get going or channel them, if you will, I can write a 300-page book in a month.
Wow.
And that includes the editing, such as it is. But now I'm up to 45. I call them self-help metaphysical books. And I'm just grateful. It just comes through me, as you understand the process as well. Music and writing. It's literally source or God working through us just to give and just to share with others.
Oh.
And yeah, I'm up to 45 and 15
Amazing.
performance magic related books.
That's fantastic.
It's I can't imagine not doing that. You know, it's just another way to give, hopefully.
And you put them all up. Are they all on Kindle or?
All are on Amazon. No more Kindle. I recognize that Kindle is a good way for many people who may not have the resources to find the book. But I also realized that more people were asking for the other formats. And now Amazon offers hardcover.
Yes.
So if you've got softcover versions, they can be converted to hardcover as well. So I offer them some in hardcover, some in softcover, and just enjoy. And Cindy, you have so many. I was a little bit overwhelmed in a good way the other day when I looked at your website. You were kind enough to share the URL, the address, if you will, with me. And I got all of that. And I'm not just saying that to be kind. I think you know me well enough. I just speak. And it so resonated for me. And the colors, the pinks and the whites and the higher vibration, the reverberations of higher spirit, I like to say God.
Yes.
Because to me, spirit is something other than God. It's part of God. Everything, we're all a part of God, or source, if you will. But truly, it resonated for me. All of your CDs. And I'm going to share this with other people. I had difficulty writing notes because there's so much. And then I had to trust the process. I had to trust whatever's going to come out today is what's meant to be heard. And thank goodness you're an incredible channel. And I mean that on all levels, for words, for healing, for love with a capital L. And honestly, right here and right now, I'm going to thank you for who you are as this great channeler, if you will, this great sharer of light and love.
Well, a deep bow of gratitude. It takes a lot of courage to put out things that some people will not believe, and some people will think you're crazy, and some people will think that you're just, living in fantasy land. When you receive these messages, the messages I receive from Spirit, I have to trust, even though sometimes people really think that I'm just way out there. But I'm not really into the woo, 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 woo.
Yeah.
I'm really just coming as you are from the source, and I trust it enough that there is some reason. And when I did this book that we worked on together, Mystical Mother Mary, Sacred Tools of Love, I had no idea at that time, kind of where it would lead, but I think I was telling you about the Insight Timer app. I have at least 3 or 4 talks there on this book. And I have to say, these days, most people like talks on yoga or mindfulness more than they want to talk about Mother Mary.
Yes,
And I understand that. So I'm going, okay, well, I know if I put this out there, this talk on Mother Mary, I'm not going to get 1,000 people who like it. But what I found is that I would maybe get 250 people who really go, I was waiting for that. I'm so glad that you talked about that. The value of 1 or 2 or 3 people
yes,
realizing and resonating
Yeah.
with this energy and magic
yes.
that happens can have an impact much greater than maybe 2,000 people who do a yoga. And I'm not putting down yoga or mindfulness. There's really a place for that.
Yes.
But there's also, as you well know, this inside mystical connection that we've learned,
Yes.
where we can go inside and connect with God and all the different infinite sources of light and love and the teachers, the masters, all there within. And that was the way I was trained and the way you were trained.
Yes.
And I am taking it a step further this year, and I'm in the midst of a rather huge process of writing and doing my next CD, which I actually want to make into a stage play. But it all got visualized about the true story of the power of Mother Mary as a master, because as you know, and as I write in the book,
Yes.
she wasn't just some 14-year-old innocent sweet girl that happened to have the angel come and she got pregnant and with God. And I take offense at the fact that there's such an amazing lineage of women that have not been recognized for the power they had, including the lineage of Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. And so this new piece is going to be about Mary and the power of the star, the magic, and the magi, as you know, are masters, they're magicians. Magicians are masters.
Yes. Yes.
And how they saw that star and they realized that star was really the holy light of the infinite coming and bringing that through Mary. And I have that all in this next piece I'm working with about the magicians, the masters realizing, yes, it is, even though scientifically and astrologically we see the star, but there's more to it. There's indeed this light coming to earth, and heaven is coming to earth. And I bring that all in this, and then I go into that whole story of that night of magic when heaven came to earth and the world was changed with the love that came forth through Mary. And for me, that's just something that I was guided again through Mary to bring forth to the world, because sometimes I think Christmas is, it's become so limited in what it really should be. I mean, I know, and you know the way that religions work. And I mean, we know that it wasn't really at Christmas time when Christ was born. We know a lot of these things have been taking place, but we cannot limit the power of the birth of God on earth and the spirit and the light coming to earth and heaven on earth becoming a reality. And I was guided to just like, you've got to put this out there. So it's a big task, but I think you'll love it. I'll make sure you get the CD, Love Conquers All, The Night Heaven Came to Earth, I think is a working title.
Wow.
This is so big that really, I'm sure you can feel it. I'm feeling that right now. This is very, very special. And I'm sure because I know your work and I know where you're coming from, people will feel the power of empowerment, of light, of true empowerment, because we can kid ourselves. The ego gets in the way. And if you get me started, I'll go on again. But
I'll get you started. That's what I wanted to get you started.
If we allow our ego to get in the way, then we're really fooling ourselves. That's our human flawed mind, if you will, the human part of our mind. And what you tend to do is you tend to raise our vibration to allow source, God, love, higher intelligence, wisdom, creativity, wow, to just come through. And when we're embraced by it and it shines through us, people feel that as inspiration. People might be walking down the street. We may be on public transit or somewhere, and they're feeling something. They don't even know what they're feeling. It may be inspiration. It may be some kind of insight. that is God, that is source. And as Dr. Masters used to say, and I believe that, that intuition is not just something, oh, my heart tells me this and this and that. That's big. It's intuition with a capital I. And
Yes.
that is one of the times when we can recognize that God or source is working through us, for example, as intuition. It's completely separate from that whole psychic thing. You know, it's a different
Yes.
vibration. It's the
Yes.
highest vibration is
Yeah.
intuition, which is God. And God is all the various things that God is, all the wonderful, powerful things that God is. And the psychic thing, it's a lower vibration that I'm not going to go there for many
Playground
reasons.
Playground for people who want to play in that playground of
Yes,
learning and tools.
yes.
But the word in to it,
Ah,
we're into it, right? We're into it.
yes,
And that intuition is being into spirit, really. You know, inspiration is
Yeah.
in spirit. You know, we think of so many words that go within. And I have to say, you know, I've known you many years now. And as you get older, and as we get older, I have been finding this inner push to get more out
yes.
before I leave the
Absolutely.
planet. And that's been it's not a legacy even. It's just like, okay, I have this much time. I'd like to get whatever is supposed to be coming out through me while I'm here. I wish to get it out. And that's been a driving force with saying yes to spirit. You know, and I know we always have a choice.
Yes.
We have
Yeah.
we have a choice. And with the war going on right now, and with the COVID that we went through, oh, it's been so sad that some people have stopped believing in prayer. Some people have stopped believing in God. Some people have lost hope. Some people have totally lost that belief. So
Yeah.
all of my messages and what I'm trying to put out now have to do with believing, with hope, with don't forget there are miracles that happen. I have had so many miracles that happen. This is the anniversary today that a year ago, my significant other literally was dead on the floor at the radio station. I came in, it had been 18 minutes without a pulse. I started praying to Mother Mary and to God. And within 2 minutes, he came back to life. And they said, well, you know, I was told by doctors at least 3 times during the week, he's not going to make it. There's no way if he comes back, you know, and again, miracles happened. And it's a year later now. So I've had many, and I'm sure you have had miracles happen. And
Yes.
it's not just me, it's just, I believe, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Miracles are happening now. They happen all the time.
Yes.
And it's just a question of our perceptions, really. You know, does it take some kind of what we may perceive as a negative event, and then it's shifting to something really positive, to it being fixed, for us to go, oh, that was a miracle. Other people might say, oh, that was just science. And that's okay too, because I believe God created science and all those wonderful things as well. But truth be told, miracles are happening even now. This is a miracle. You know,
isn't it? I mean, we haven't talked, I think, since 2016.
Yes.
And here we are, you in Canada and I here on Maui.
Yes.
And through whatever message and reason you decided to reach out, I mean, we're connecting here
Yeah.
in a magical way. And again, just like it was 2016, there really hasn't been any difference in our being able to communicate in the same way, except I think before it wasn't Zoom. There wasn't Zoom back then.
No, it might have been the telephone or something.
It was telephone or something.
Yeah.
Emails, yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, we can't forget that magic. We can't forget the wonder. We can't forget the miracles, and we can't lose hope.
Absolutely.
This is the time for the people like you and everyone out there who can shine their light and offer hope and believe in goodness and God, to not give up. The forces of light are stronger than ever. There's more people meditating more than ever. There's more good things happening and kindness happening more than ever. But with that comes the people who are, I dare I say, like Putin and other forces of darkness
Yes.
that are fighting this. And we can't be brought down by those forces of darkness. We
No.
just need to shine our light brighter.
Right, right. And the light or God is stronger, infinitely stronger than any sort of perceived negativity on earth, on this physical illusionary world, if you will. And it's all temporary. That's actually one of the things about Buddhism. If you study that, then you recognize, well, everything is temporary. Everything is as Einstein said, it travels in a circle. It's simple physics, if you will. And whatever's going on right now in the world, I don't even want to acknowledge it. I mean, of course, we'll acknowledge the tragedies being done to humanity, if you will. But really, what's just waiting to pour forth is this incredible strength, this love. And it's waiting. It's just about time.
Yes.
And only God knows the exact right time for that light to shine through, for that healing, that love, that wholeness to make itself known again.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I think it's important that we do remember to say these things that we believe.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who will poo-poo it and say, you know, I have people all the time, oh, Pollyanna, this or that, you know, you don't see what's going on. I do. I watch the news. I watch the news all the time. I know all what's going on. I'm on the radio 5 days a week with a couple of different shows. And I'm very aware, you know, at my point in life, what's going on. But I also am aware at my point of light that that point of light that is greater and brighter and shining through every single person is alive, and that that point of light within can absolutely change the world, and that it is indeed changing the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautifully said. Did you want to share something with us from that book?
Well, I will see where, let me just go ask. That's right. I have so much in here. Let's see. I have so much here. Look at all the things that I
I
have.
know.
This one was called The Queen of Heaven. Melt away the walls that you've built from fear. With a breath, release all of your worries and cares and open up your eyes. The Queen of Heaven brings you peace. She comes in radiant rays of brilliant light with a host of angels at her side. And the love she offers you holds the power of healing so divine. And you are now forgiven, and the ancient sorrows you once did find, you are now surrounded by the great love of God, and you feel those blessings so divine. Welcome her love and allow yourself to be in her holy presence here. Open up your heart and you will find the healing presence so divine. Open up your eyes and see the vision of eternity. And she offers out her hand and gives you that radiant globe of the planet. It holds the gift of love for our fellow man to know. Take it in your hand and let it fill you up with light and life and the grace of compassion that grows. And so you can offer that blessing of gold to the one and let the light pour forth to the world and see how the power of forgiveness is the answer for all and can be found, and brings it back to a place within your heart. And know that grace that's so profound. And you are now a part of the love the Queen of Heaven brings. And her protection is there for you always to find. And there really are no worries or cares in the soul's perfect domain. The Queen of Angel is here. And I was going to put one more in if we have time.
Absolutely.
Here.
Absolutely.
Love God with all your heart. Love God with a passion that burns as the one flame of all creation. For God is the creator and the fire that consumes all of the mistakes and illusions to leave only the truth of existence, so that you may finally be free to give your freedom from the dreams, to give you freedom from the dreams that have held you prisoner and allowed you to sleep while passing time here on earth. But each breath is a prayer for life. Each thought can be set as a direction, the compass that will guide you home. And each moment is a revelation that unveils the mysteries to the answers to the soul's brilliant light with the power to set you free. Bring that light of God's love into your heart and let it burn brightly through eternity. Let the presence that awakens you to the Holy Spirit's many gifts come, for there is the heart's true yearning that is the key to the answers promised. This is the time for truth to be heard. This is the awakening of your true nature, stripped bare and standing naked and free, with God there in the heart of it all, alive within your soul right here and now. God is the fire, the passion, and the awakening. God gives you the freedom to be you and to find the truth within yourself and the love that will redeem you to eternal life in the union of the one in all creation. So, there's how many in here? How many did we put in here? Oh, hundreds, right? I think there's hundreds in here, right?
There are literally, and I've loved everyone. I've had the thanks to you, the blessings to edit, to go through, to read just about every word, and how life-changing that was for me. I have to tell you, and I'm not just saying that to be nice, it's the absolute truth. And even right now, those words spoken, source, God, the light, love, working through you and expressing verbally and audibly for all of us to experience, that just raised up my vibration. And I'm sure that everyone at home who was listening, who was feeling and experiencing, has been moved by those words. I'm sure on one degree or another, someone has had a life-altering experience, whether they consciously realize that or not. No doubt. Those are very, very high with a capital H words just spoken by you, Cynthia. I must thank you for that.
I thank you. And I do want to do a footnote there. I am not a Catholic. Many people assume because I talk about Mary that I'm a Catholic.
Right.
I do not belong to one religion as a metaphysician as you are.
Yes.
I embrace the mystical path, which doesn't reject any beliefs of any religions, but at the same time, realize there's a universal essence that relates and speaks to everyone. And that mystical path is different than what some people may assume when I say the word God, or when I talk about Jesus Christ. I talk about Mary in a way of the teachers and masters that we all have access to, that is a living presence still here right now. Not in the way you might have been raised, but in a way that is life-changing.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting that most people give it a religious connotation when they hear the word God, because probably they haven't been exposed to other things, and that's absolutely fine. Whatever works for you, whatever helps you to grow, to be the best you can be, and to share, that obviously is the path for you. If it's working, why, as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, we must live, not just follow. We must, and I say you and I, and whoever else is on the same path, must live it, must breathe the words, and share. And share as well.
I am so glad you said that, because this has actually been what I've been trying to work on. When I say try, I take that out. What I've been working on for years. As I told you, I started when I was very young, and in the beginning, it was all about the bliss. Oh my gosh, how great you feel when you're union with God and you're experiencing God and that oneness. But then you learn through life that it's not about the bliss. It's not about being in that state trying to escape life, but it's because you get that energy that you need to be practical and bring it to earth. You're here to share your message by the way you live, not just the words. And I've been doing this most of my life, and I have to say it's not easy. Trying to live the words that I get is really challenging when I try to practice harmlessness and thought and mind and living. That's a lifetime practice, Yes, it's the practice, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's one thing to just talk and write these things, but it's truly in the living of them that we realize how amazing these masters such as Buddha and Christ and Krishna, they all left their lives behind to try to live it. And we have to respect the path that they tried to follow. It's not an easy path. And it can take a lifetime, and that's, we thank God for the forgiveness, because we all make mistakes. And we need to always go back to that. It's like, gosh, forgive me, because I've made a lot of mistakes, and I don't even know sometimes.
I'm sure. Absolutely. I have a theory, and hopefully you'll agree with me on this, why it's so difficult. I believe it's because we're embodied. We have source embodied within this physical body, the shell. It's a blessing, of course. Thank goodness for this physical, if you will, shell. And God resonates so high vibrationally. Sometimes we're not ready for that. And sometimes our body can hardly contain it. And that's when it's time to share. And I recognize God, of course, even now, right here and right now. There is no place where God is not. Therefore, where we are, God is. But in my meditation practice, when I'm meditating and looking up into my third eye, or, whatever area, brow area, whatever people feel comfortable with the terminology, sometimes I'll feel this profound peace that passeth all understanding. And I know that's God. Sometimes I will see a light or hear music or have another experience. That's because I'm in this physical body, and God has afforded me some kind of experience, as if to say, oh, here I am. Not that God has to do anything or prove anything, but it's like, oh, okay, this is beautiful. And sometimes I'll bathe in that light that I'm experiencing. And sometimes it's a profound euphoria. God takes all different kinds of shapes, but all of them a blessing. If there's any fear, if you ever feel, and this is for people out there, if it scares you, or there's fear of any kind involved in something that you're reading or hearing, it's not God. That's not the highest vibration that there is. And I'm going to get into this. I wasn't going to, but I'm guided to right now. Social media is a blessing, but also it's loaded with stuff and misinformation. And if anyone out there, when they're reading this thing, it's a gamut of negative expressions. So if you're feeling shock or fear or outrage or anger, or if it's like kind of gossipy, it's not God, it's not truth, and it's not truth with a capital T. So take a breath and move on. Give thanks for it, that you were able to, you have your senses to experience that, but move on. We don't need that. Nobody needs negativity, but rather to be a purveyor of source and God and light.
Oh, well said. I'm going to do a talk on Insight Timer, probably after this airs, but on tomorrow, Sunday, and it's going to be about worthiness, because I'm finding so many people through social media are feeling unworthy, because you see all these people, all they post is all the amazing things they've done. The good things usually is, I got this award, I got this, I look perfect. I've learned how to make my Photoshop or my apps to make me look wonderful. And people feel like they are not as good. And they also are afraid to post something like I post, because I know if I post something about God, it won't get as many likes as someone who post something with a picture of them saying they went out and went to dinner somewhere, so you can get more likes with a picture you're going to dinner than you can do with when you post. And I mean, I see this all the time, and I think how many people are afraid to really post something real that they're feeling or feeling unworthy because of social media. You are worthy, people. You are worthy. You're a child of God, and you cannot let yourself be limited by people's judgments and by what you see on social media. You cannot ever feel that you're not worthy when you are trying to express who you are. And I really say this hoping someone resonates with that. You cannot be brought down by what people will judge you on social media. And social media cause us to like or not like, or put an angry face or a happy face. And we're being programmed to say like or not like all the time. And that isn't like, there's so much more. And I want to thank you for one other thing, because I think you were meant to say it. My newest book I'm working on, I'd love your help on to finish it up. I have it mostly written, is on peace. It's the Peace Manual, and the answer lies within. And I started it before the war, and I was guided. And again, includes the peace that passeth all understanding. We know that peace lying within us is the peace that will change the world.
Yes.
And we need to always go back within. And as we find that peace that passeth understanding, and as we find a common ground, and we find the goodwill, and we find how we are all one, we are going to find more peace within us, and then more peace within the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And really, that's where it's at. I'm going to sound a little bit superficial by saying that, but really that's where it's at. And you spoke a few seconds ago of worthiness or self-worth. And I found in my hypnotherapy practice and my theocentric psychology practice, thanks to Dr. Masters, and my degree in that, I found at the root of a lot of people's distress, I'll call it distress, was worthiness, lack of self-worth.
Yes.
And we had to work together to find the root cause of it. But I found, again, thanks to Dr. Masters, who founded the University of Metaphysics and the University of Sedona, for folks out there who don't know that, actually, the works of Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, who was considered to be one of the fathers, together with Emerson, but I consider Quimby to be the father of New Thought, his mind treatments, which for me as a clinical hypnotherapist provided a shortcut for my clients or patients. I didn't want them coming to me for years and years. It's financially, sure, that would put me in a very good place, but I don't want these people suffering. So I discovered, or was led, thanks to the universities, to Quimby's writings, did a lot of research on it, and started doing something very similar to his mind treatments. And that's essentially anchoring yourself. People into NLP will know what I'm speaking of. Anchoring yourself in God, using God as an anchor. And obviously that anchor doesn't work for people who are skeptics or purely about science or whatever. And so I'd have to use other methodologies, other tools in my tool belt. But in the end, if you can anchor yourself, if you can make your energy equal as it can for any period of time to source, you're healing already. You're healing on all levels. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm so grateful for you and peace. What a perfect time to bring a book, hopefully CDs and other things as well, about peace. The timing is perfect, but really every time is perfect for peace, is it not?
Absolutely true. And I do have 2 spoken word CDs about peace out there. But, this was way before, again, the wars. And truthfully, you and I know that there's always a need. And I talked to Dr. Masters once about peace and told him I was working on a CD unit. And I tried to go into, we talked about why this planet has wars. And he beautifully said, and it's hard to accept sometimes, that this planet is a planet where we come to learn our lessons, and there are baby souls and there are people here who have a lot of lessons to learn. And as long as there are people like that are new incarnations or ones working with their ego, there's going to be conflicts, and there's going to be people who do not want anything but what their ego wants. And when you go back to that, there is going to be issues and things where war comes up when you don't understand that there's more than the ego. And when you understand past that, you see the oneness of all. You see how you and I, right now in this moment here, really in energy, in this energy field, we're really one. I mean, what you're saying is what's inside me. What I'm saying is inside you. You resonate because you understand, because you've developed yourself to understand that light within, and that light is calling it forth where we're talking here right now. And when we all get on that path and understand that, we can overcome the lower vibrations of ego and the fear and what happens when we limit ourselves, when we join together as we do in meditation, whether we're aware of it or not, with that inner source and with that light and love. We are all, as you said, raising the vibrations and becoming one to heal the planet. So, I mean, that's why I honor what you do. And I really honor that you're listening to yourself. I know there was a reason we came together to talk after, how many years? 6 years? Maybe 6 years. On Twitter, we see each other's posts, we have a Twitter communication. So we haven't really talked, and I would like you, if you're interested, contact me and we'll work. I'd love you to kind of finish up the rest of my book on peace. There's so many things I need to get out, that I'm working on, and I'm just going, okay, God, I'm going to need some help here. I hope that I get the right people to get this out to the world, and I know you're doing the same thing. You're always going within and helping people with your messages, with the magic you bring to the world.
And same, everything you've just said is actually who you are as well, which is probably why it's being reflected, why you're seeing it in someone else, because you're actually seeing yourself. And that's a beautiful thing. When we go inward, where we think we're seeing ourselves, but we're really seeing God. I think Dr. Masters used to say that a lot in his meditations too, which for my money, no one can compare with Dr. Leon Masters, just in case people want to look that up. Nothing, no other kind of verbal meditation has gotten me there. It still does. There's great people out there, great purveyors of God, great channelers of higher power, wisdom, higher intelligence, creativity, and all that. But I keep coming back to Dr. Paulos-Season Masters and his work. And I encourage people to really look up the University of Metaphysics or the University of Sedona and Dr. Paulos-Season Masters. I'm not saying this as an advertisement. I'm saying this because it's changed. I'll say it's enhanced my life. Really, it's changed my life, but it certainly continues to enhance my life. And you were very close with Dr. Masters, and that kind of blew me away.
Stepfather and my friend for life, and I was blessed to know him very, very well. In fact, I think before he passed away, we had a talk, and he said, I've known you longer than any other. We've been friends longer than any other person on this planet, and there's a reason that you came into my life and that I came into your life, and I know that was that, and I have to say, I still, as I was telling you, I honor him by something we started while he was alive, which is it's called KUOS, and I do offer his weekly meditations on KUOS on Sunday morning, and his talks, and also some of mine. And I really do feel there's still a wealth of stuff that he put out that I'm going to be working on to try to get out there. And I appreciate you understanding, and going back to that. We have to honor our teachers. And as Dr. Master said, it's not like being a guru, it's being a teacher. And he never wanted to be more than just a teacher. And so he never went the guru path or anything, but he did make a difference in many people's lives. And I know in mine, and I know in yours. So I thank you. And I know he appreciates you still spreading the word.
Thank you for that. That means so much. And I'm so honored and grateful that you chose to come on today's show. I'd love you to share your URL, your website address, because there's a myriad. I'm not just saying that for you to make a buck or for, I'm really sharing this because I know people will get something out of this. There's something for everybody. If you're a seeker or a searcher, if you will, if you think you know it all, forget that. Then you better start at kindergarten, or perhaps you're already at kindergarten. But if you're already at a certain level and you're curious and you're feeling good about yourself and you're still seeking, I think it's a lifelong search. I think to be a seeker in this lifetime anyway is something I hope to be for the rest of this physical lifetime. What is your website address? And people will love it. I just know it.
Thank you. Cindy, C-I-N-D-Y, Paulos, P-A-U-L-O-S, cindypaulos.com. And I did it myself, which you can tell when you go to the site. I've never found anyone else really that I've had a chance yet to improve the site. So please see past that tech thing, because I'm not a tech person. But I do have a lot of in fact, all of my books and CDs there. But also I do post daily, which I don't always update. I don't usually update my cindypaulos.com site, but I do post daily on Facebook. I try to always connect daily on Twitter, Cindy Paulos on Facebook, Cindy Paulos on Twitter, and I do post daily on Instagram and Cindy Paulos on those. Just because daily I get information and I'm guided. It's not a matter of I'm guided. That's why I get up at 4 a.m. to meditate for an hour and then write down what comes to me and share it, because I still have to honor that inner nudge of spirit to still share what messages are coming through.
Absolutely. We're grateful for you, and we are grateful for all these works that you do. You're sharing. I like to call it sharing. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Cindy.
It was so wonderful to see you again. A big hug from Maui to Canada, and just lots of love and light and appreciation for who you really are and your support. I love you. I appreciate you, and I thank you. Namaste. And aloha.
Aloha. Thank you so much, Cindy. Will you come back sometime?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to.
Excellent. Thank you so much once again. And thanks to all of you out there who have taken the time to watch us on Magical People. We'll see you all again very soon.